Welcome back to my part 2 conversation with David Price. If you haven't listened to part 1, pause right now, go back, and then come meet us here. In part 1, David Price took us inside the art and science of busking, the body language, the golden volunteer, the proprioception demo that honestly made my morning. Now, in part 2, we zoom out. We're talking about what it means to take this work global, crossing language barriers without a single word, building STEM kits for classrooms where balloons are a luxury, keeping a mission sacred while running a real business, and what David Price still hasn't finished yet. This is Schoolutions, the podcast that extends education beyond the classroom. A show that isn't just theory, but practical, try it tomorrow approaches for educators and caregivers to ensure every student finds their spark and receives the support they need to thrive. Welcome back, listeners. This is part 2 of my conversation with the amazing David Price. If you have not tuned into our part 1 conversation, pause this episode, listen, and then come back. David, welcome back. In part 1 of our conversation, you described we got to live a science busk in a way. And so it's so captivating for listeners to go back and experience that. We also talked about just the nuances of, how do buskers even pick the golden person to join in the performance? What makes a good science busk, the science festivals, all of that goodness. I really want to talk in part 2 about going global and what it means to have to run this enterprise while finding joy in the nuances of the work and maintaining your mission, because your mission is very clear. So with that said, the idea of language barriers and cultural barriers, I loved learning about the visualize approach. And I know it is no longer. I am a little devastated.
Oh,
I know
sadly, yeah.
it's so sad. But you still have to address language and cultural barriers when you're traveling around the world. So how do you do that as a street performer?
So, so visualize was this beautiful thing where it was a theatre piece. It was designed to work in theatres and bringing schools and family audiences in theatres about STEM, but it had no words at all. No words were forbidden through the whole thing. Two science clowns played with beautiful phenomena set to a beautiful soundtrack, set to a beautiful slideshow, really. And because it had no words, it didn't need any translation. Anybody from anywhere could go in there and get something out of that show. And then as people left, we would back that up if people wanted more information with handouts about and references to the website where you could dive a little deeper into the science. But on the stage itself, Gaz and Debbie, my wonderful colleagues, my two science clown colleagues, did not utter a word. And I think one of the things that street performance STEM has going for it is, okay, there are some words, but so much of it is done by holding and feeling and experiencing and smiling and the body language of what we're doing. So I'm busking in Hong Kong now, and for the last 3 years that I've done this gig, although the shows when we go into schools they are translated, I have amazing translators here, but the busking itself, everybody's it doesn't need it, David. People can pick up on your cues, what you're doing and how you're doing, and they get and then they can translate for each other around little points where they might not be so sure what you're saying. And I think that's a big thing that street performance takes with it. It's not just about what you say; it's what you do.
Yeah. It's something I learned recently from Dr. Benjamin Freud. He's at the Green School in Bali. And he said, learning isn't through doing, it's actually learning and doing. And he wishes it could be one word, learning, doing,
Learning
because
doing.
learning, doing. And that's really what, as you're describing, that's what I also see, that science, learning, doing, it really captivates the audience. And there's also this notion of mimicry that I think is a teacher, of where children are, they're watching. We need models, and to mimic, but then also you watch each other, you watch the movements, and that's a skill set to be able to observe.
This is it. This is it. It's children are amazing at it, and we do a frankly awful job of knocking that out of them through the education process. You know, they're born as experts in mimicry, which is observation, really, when you boil it down. You know, yes, very, very well said.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to me. And so I think, even though visualize doesn't currently exist, my hope and dream would be that it can come back in some iteration, even with updates in the tech and all that we know now, because it is powerful. The idea of not being able to use words, but to have the visual and to be able to take in an experience, with the slides and the movement, I think that's really powerful.
If, heavyweight funders take note that if there is somebody out there who wants to fund a visualize Mark II, as it were, visualize the recreation, then
Yeah.
we would be very interested to talk to you.
Maybe we could do revisualize, David.
Revisualize, yeah,
Revisualize or
yeah.
visualize again. Okay, so the mission of Science Made Simple, I want to read it specifically. It's to break down obstacles to learning by engaging people with STEM as part of popular culture, the skills and careers. So, how do you hold that mission sacred while you do have to make a profit as a business to keep this going?
Sometimes it can be really hard because we get invitations to events all over the world, multiples of them every year, but we can't do it because so often these things, wonderful events, but you know, maybe they pay your accommodation and some travel, but no fee. And they'd often say, well, you know, please come along and think of the exposures that you'll get at this event. Well, you know, the bottom line is the exposure really does not pay your mortgage. Um, and so we can't do them. And it's often a case of working with clients and working with organizations to help them find a source of funding so that we can work together.
Yeah. So let's talk Science Made Simple team. Who is on the team? Because you're the jet setter. Are there other street buskers?
I have been extremely lucky. I have been, all of us in Science Made Simple have our areas of expertise. Our director, Wendy, that's diversity and inclusion. You know, my colleague who I work with the amazing Ruth Perkins, is sort of working with SEM pupils. So we all have our areas of expertise. I was really lucky in that time when I was winning awards. This is my version of it anyway. When that time when I was winning awards for busking and busking training and these sorts of things, then busking was quite an in thing. Science communication is like every other aspect of life. As you wait long enough, it'll come around again. And it was an in topic. And so organizations and science centers and universities were looking around for people in the world who could train in these skills. And I was just about the only one.
Okay.
So for the best part of a decade, my calendar was full of you know, and this is where I did most of the traveling around around our planet. So I think I had the right skills at the right time.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So then Knowing that you've also been on the board of trustees, I believe it was the Lightyear Foundation,
Like your foundation,
right,
yes.
is a Ghanaian educational charity. What did STEM education look like when you were playing that role on a board?
It's so working with pupils and people in Ghana and in Africa and if we say the developing world, um, you look at a classroom setting and you walk into that classroom and maybe there's 100 pupils, one teacher, but that's not the thing that blew me away. You walk into that classroom and a certain percentage of those pupils are adults, and they're only there because it's the only time in their life when they now have the money where they can afford to indulge in education. And it's just so you're designing a busking kit to go out to such schools, and you realize that you can't include balloons in it because they can't get a sort of an accessible supply, a regular supply of balloons. So you have to think your way around the kit that they use, making sure the materials are accessible for them. Things like Lightyear do an amazing job. I'm no longer on the board. I haven't been so for a while, but they do an absolutely incredible job of taking high quality science communication to where it's needed in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. So then let's take a moment, because that's fascinating to me, thinking of the science busking kit creation. How do you decide, based on where you're going to land, how much in advance do you have to reach out to create these kits? How do you get them there? How do you decide on the resources that you're going to include?
It's talking that comes down to talking to the clients, and we have a standard kit of things that are pretty easy to access in many places, not all places, but many places. And we tend to train using that kit
Okay.
because it gives people a step up. It gives people something concrete that they can grab hold of and attach the playfulness around STEM to. But then very often, and particularly with researchers, we work with them. And of course, they have their own research. And what I think is the skills of street performers, busking skills, can be transferred to any branch of STEM if you think hard enough about it. If you give yourself a chance, if you sit there and relax and think around it and think around it. Very often, we get researchers who say, "But there's nothing in my topic that is." I don't belong to one of the physical sciences where you have something, it's an idea in a way. And we say to them, well, even if your topic was really tricky, what about using the scientific method? Because that is something that vast stretches of the public around this planet know very little about. And yet it's a amazing set of rules that govern what scientists do. Knowing more about, giving people a chance to know more about that is frankly quite a beautiful thing. Yeah.
David, something you're making me think a lot about. My work as a coach, I get to spend time with science teachers, middle and high school science teachers. And I have this privilege of also having them unzip their brains around their science curricula and how they're crafting it. Many of the science teachers I'm working with are moving to connecting science standards with phenomena that happen in the natural world for children. And so that phenomena is an anchor for the scientific method, for the conversations they're having. And then they're also researching where the phenomena happens locally. So the students are able then to connect, wow, here's the phenomena of drought, or then they're connecting it to droughts that they're experiencing locally so they can see that happening. I think there's a great power to also connecting the method itself. That's so interesting to me.
And I think what it does, or what you just described beautifully there, it's giving that STEM a real life setting.
Yeah.
So it's not this isolated thing. It's something that has a relationship with your life. And then there becomes much more of a reason and a depth to. It's like in we wrote a show for maths teachers in Wales, and we asked several thousand maths teachers in Wales what does pupils say, what's the most common thing, what relevance does this have to my
Yeah.
life, so we created a show to try and reflect the maths that happens in a standard lesson, but by giving it real life settings. And I think that's a really powerful thing we can do with so much STEM. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That idea of where are we going to use this? Why do I have to learn this? In the book I'm working on, I actually am taking note of the spicy questions students ask, and the pushback, because as a teacher, you need to be able to answer those questions, and to engage kids, getting them into that idea of explorer mode versus just the passive showing up to school mode.
Exactly. We worked on a teacher training project. It was actually teacher training research in the UK called Thinking, Doing, Talking Science.
Ah,
So thinking, doing, talking, well worth looking up if you're into that sort of thing. And one of the starting, and this was science teaching for primary school teachers who weren't science specific teachers. And it's most of the lessons started off with a odd one out. So three physical things in front of you: piece of chocolate, piece of ice, a painting, a plant, a cactus, something like that, and say, okay, talk to me, people. Which is odd one out? And eventually that goes on to the science topic, but that's not the point. The point is it got them questioning things. It got them getting used to vocalizing their thoughts. It got them getting used to this idea of there's no wrong answer, incorrect answer, as long as you can justify your answer. Really simple steps like that, just getting pupils being able to express themselves around STEM a little bit more. Play, or as I put it, play with STEM.
play with STEM and build confidence. I'll go back to that strand we began part one with. My goal, I hope our goal in this world of education, is to build our students' confidence to be able to engage in conversations that will make the human race better, make our planet better, and be able to push back if they hear information that they may know is not factual, but do it in a way that can be received. Because the way that a lot of adults are communicating right now in the world, it's not listening to each other. And I think our kids are often much better at listening and receiving information and pondering and questioning and being curious. So I'd ask our adults to be just as curious. David, let's end part two. I'm just so fascinated to know, you've mentioned teacher training programs and other training programs that you have created and employed, really. What advice would you have for someone that wanted to get into street performance and science busking?
Watch street performers. I think watch street performers. When you start looking at them, it's weird. For one thing, you can watch a street performer and then come back a couple of weeks later and watch the same person, and they're doing exactly the same thing. You know that's that. I think people think that they're making it up on the spot. And of course they're great at improv. They are fantastic at improv. Around volunteers, but the material they use, it's identical down to the choreography of where they're standing. It's minutely observed. So go and observe some street performers and see if it interests you. You don't. No, here we go. Yeah, you don't have to be. I mean, me, I'm like when I'm on stage, I'm like a kangaroo on steroids. I bounce around. I'm all over the place. You do not have to be like that. You do not. I have some colleagues who are amazing buskers who do it in a very calm, forthright, upbeat way, completely unlike me. The great thing about those skills, they're adaptable. Busking skills are adaptable enough to suit who you are, and that's what we always train to. I hope I never say, don't be that person, be somebody else. It's because the most effective person you can be in a STEM communication scenario is you, is bringing you to the party. If the people can see some of your passion, some of your likes and dislikes and hopes and fears around that topic, then it becomes a real thing to them, and also it has the very good benefit of not portraying scientists with lots of grey hair, with safety spectacles and white coats. It portrays them as real people with the same hopes and fears as the rest of us. Another thing I would say is try and find a local association for science communication. They're popping in the UK. One of them that I absolutely is and you don't have to be in the UK to join it. People join it from all over the world, and that's called the British Interactive Group, BIG, big.
Okay.
And I would not be in science communication, but for the people in big, X number of years ago, 20 odd years ago, saying, David, you got a good idea there with the street performance side of thing. I'd carry on with that, carry on pushing that, see if you can find some funding for that. They supported me while I got my qualifications, if you like, and that I think that's always a good thing to do. Maybe if you're into it, do a science communication masters if you're into that sort of thing, because they're being offered more and more around the world. And this is, don't give up. It's been said so many times, but honestly, what I do is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. Is still one of the truest things I probably heard that on The Simpsons.
Yeah.
But it's so true. It's so utterly true.
Yeah.
Don't let anybody tell you to go away and do something else. Keep on at it. And you get somewhere. Eventually you get somewhere.
So I'll end on this question. What still feels unfinished to you that keeps you going? Because this has got to be exhausting work. I'm sure it's joyful. You have a lot of energy, but my gosh, the travel and it's got to be draining.
The public, I don't suppose there's any science to this, but nonetheless, it is absolutely true that you can feed off the energy of your public. Your public's enthusiasm becomes your energy, and that, yeah, but it's just true. It just is true. What have I got to? What is left? There's a competition that people should look up in the world, and it's called the Singapore National Science Busking Championships. I've been its trainer twice. I've been the official trainer twice, and that, when I went to that, it was like I couldn't believe it. All of these people, really tough, really arduous series of exercises that they have, essentially presenting their material. The buskers present their material to different audiences.
Oh wow!
The two girls who won that when I first attended it in 2012 were called the Sci-Fi Girls, and they were talking about volcanology, but that doesn't matter really. They were incredible. Whoever trained them, I take my hat off to. They used every technique in the book, and now I imagine them as they're 11-year-olds when I went back then. So now what, they'll be sort of coming out of university in early career, and I imagine them as scientists and engineers. I'm trying to find out what they did actually end up doing, but I imagine them as scientists and engineers using those skills to sell their science to the world. And I want those sort of experiences to be accessible to more people. That competition is already exists in it started just relatively recently. It started in Africa. I would love to bring something like that to Europe and find a way of sustainably funding it. Yeah.
David, This has been the most fascinating, inspirational conversation. Science communication may seem like it's dull, but it is not dull if
There's in
David
no way,
Price
shape,
is
or form.
involved. No. And the concept of science busking was so captivating to me. So thank you for taking the time to have this conversation. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Olivia. It was an absolute pleasure doing this. Really enjoyed every moment of it.
Yeah. Take care.
Thank you.
I need to give a huge thank you to David Price. I need to thank him for the joy, the honesty, the vision, and for recording that episode at 7:30 on a Hong Kong evening just because science communication matters that much to him. I hope you as listeners walk away from this conversation a little more willing to play with an idea, to roll a ball at a stranger, and to ask why out loud. 3 takeaways I'm leaving this conversation with. Our body can be our best science kit. From proprioception to mimicry, the most powerful STEM engagement tools require nothing more than curiosity and a willingness to play. Not a lab, not a budget, and not even language is required. Second, street performance and science communication share the same secret. You don't need a captive audience if you know how to build one. The skills are learnable, adaptable, and completely yours to own. And third, science busking isn't just entertainment, it's equity. When we strip away jargon, cost, and language barriers, science belongs to everyone. Whether you're in a Hong Kong festival, a Ghanaian classroom, or a town square in India. And I need to ask a favor. Science Made Simple is a social enterprise, which means your support, your sharing, and your attention genuinely keeps this mission moving. I've included links to their work, the British Interactive Group, and the Singapore National Science Busking Championships, all in the show notes. And if you are a heavyweight funder, those are David's words, not mine, there is a wordless, borderless science theater show called Visualize that deserves to exist again. Reach out, make it happen. The world needs more of this. Coming up on Schoolutions next week, I am so excited to introduce you to urban planner Sabina Unni. She is on a mission to transform the clogged streets in front of New York City schools into outdoor classrooms, block parties, and safe spaces for kids to actually breathe. Sabina breaks down exactly how the School Streets program with open plans works and what it would take to bring it to every school in the city. If you care about where children learn, not just what they learn, this one is for you. Schoolutions podcast is created, produced, and edited by me, Olivia Wall. Thank you to my older son, Benjamin, who created the music playing in the background. You can follow and listen to Schoolutions wherever you get your podcasts, or subscribe to never miss an episode and watch on YouTube. Thank you to my guest, David Price, for reminding us that science isn't something you sit and receive. It's something you do, feel, and share. And the street performers of the world have known this long before the classroom ever caught on. Reach out to me at oliviawall.com if you'd like a thought partner to help you cultivate curious learners who advocate for what they believe in. And tune in every Monday and Friday for part 1 and 2 of my guest conversations with the best evidence-based, classroom-ready strategies that you can apply right away to better the lives of the children in your care. Your 60-second bite-sized piece of learning from our conversation will be waiting for you on Wednesdays to share with a colleague. Take care, and thank you for forever getting better with me. See you next week.